With lives in crisis, families being torn apart, and compassion at an all-time low, it's time to get back to basics. Back to basics.
And now, back to the Community Hour with George B. Alexander and Willie Warren.
I'll yield my seat to you, and then just by way of introduction, we've heard so many things about what's going on with the education process in our city here, both positive and negative. We heard it from all sources, people that, have some stake in the game, so to speak, and other folks that are just standing on the fringes. But we have a person here that's been probably the most maligned person in the city of Buffalo when we talk about education, but somebody who's come here and tried her best to try to straighten our situation out, particularly with our children and the educational process. And so our guest this morning, we have two guests this morning. One certainly is not a stranger to y'all because she's been around and she's been doing a number of different things here in the city of Buffalo. So let me introduce her first, and that's Dr. Barbara Nevergo. Good morning, Dr. Nevergo.
Good morning, George. How are you?
Real good. Good to have you on the show again.
It's a pleasure.
And we also have with us the Superintendent of Buffalo Public Schools, Dr. Pamela Brown. Good morning, Dr. Brown.
Good morning. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, ladies, there's a lot of things that have been going on, and it would be an understatement. My thing to you right now is that, Mr. Warren, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I would like to say something. Well, George, could I say something, George?
Go ahead. Make it short.
I would like to make it short. In order, Mrs. Brown, welcome to the Community Hour.
Thank you.
Second time I think you've been here.
That's right.
Welcome to WUFO Radio.
Thank you.
Mix 1080. First of all, before we get into our discussion this morning, you tell us about what you have planned for the Buffalo school system and what you're doing, what you plan to do this morning. It's proper and fitting, I think, that people are saying that, she's not qualified. Her qualification. Could you walk me through this morning, before we get into this show, your qualification? Tell me.
Absolutely. Well, I think that my qualifications have been widely publicized, but I have a long history of experience in the field of education. I've worked at several different levels. I've been a teacher. I've been a Spanish-English bilingual teacher. I've taught English as a second language. I have served as a director of ESL and foreign language for an entire district. I have served as a principal of 3 different schools, all of which were turnaround situations that thankfully I was able to work with the staff and community to turn around and move to much higher levels of achievement. I have served as a chief of staff. I've been an assistant superintendent where I was responsible for some 30 schools each year and for their improvement in student performance and in all areas. And I served as chief academic officer in the school district of Philadelphia where I was responsible for the improvement of 271 schools. And so I have an extensive background in education. I've dedicated my whole career to education, and I believe in the potential of all children to be successful. And I am here because I want to work to make that happen in the city of Buffalo.
Well, that sounds pretty good. Roscoe?
Okay, Mr. Warren. Dr. Brown, just, a lot of times you may not always get to tell your side of the story and whatnot, but what would you say to the community and the things that have been going on within the district? And just let you to begin because, without any question, just get out what you would like people to know, what our listeners would like to hear from you this morning.
Well, I want to say that I appreciated the opportunity to talk about my qualifications and experience and track record of success that I bring with me to the Buffalo Public Schools. I think that's an important part of what I would share. The second thing is that I want to say that I really appreciate all of the passion around education that I know exists here in the city of Buffalo. It's one of the things that attracted me to the opportunity to come here and serve as superintendent. I know that this city really wants the schools to improve, and I know they see that as being essential to the improvement and the progress of the city as a whole. And I absolutely agree with them that that is essential. I want to assure everyone that I am working very hard in the position of superintendent and throughout this community to make sure that what they want to see happen in our schools actually becomes a reality. I started last year with a call to action. There is no question that there's a need for drastic improvement when we look at our student performance. And I am happy to say that we have just ended a year of progress. We are not where we want or need to be yet, but I think that we should certainly acknowledge and recognize the fact that there was some systems and there were some strategies that were put into place this past year that resulted in a higher graduation rate, higher attendance rate, lower student dropout rate. We decreased the rate of student suspensions. We saw many more seniors applying to college and vocational school and getting scholarships. And so we are developing that college-going culture in this district that is so essential. And we're not just developing the culture. We are providing to a greater extent the kind of instruction and the tools that teachers and students need in order to be successful and prepare for college.
And those improvements, though, now looking at the schools that the state labels as failing schools, what were the statistics more specifically for them, and have the scores improved for African American and male students?
Good question. So as we look at the graduation rate, for example, one of the things that I kept hearing when I came on board a little over a year ago was that the graduation rate for African American males was about 27%. Well, this past year we saw a graduation rate among African American males that exceeded 40%, and the same for Latino males. So we know that we're seeing improvement in those graduation rates among all student groups. But is 40% good enough? No. So we're continuing to work hard to improve those graduation
Well,
rates.
Dr. Brown, that seems like a big increase. Is that all African American male students that began in the beginning, or does that include or not include those who may have dropped out of school or whatnot?
That includes the whole graduation cohort. So
Okay.
there were a total of, I think, a little over 2,600 students who were a part of that graduation cohort that should have graduated this past year. So that includes all of the African American males who were in that cohort, and based on the number who graduated.
Well, a lot of people have been seeing how it seems that you've been under like a constant attack, and how do you take that? Do you feel that's the case, or and who's there that's supporting you out there and on the board or out in the community?
Well, first, in terms of who's supporting me, I certainly want to acknowledge the support of a lady who's sitting next to me, Dr. Barbara Nevergold. She, I believe, has demonstrated strong and very capable leadership as the president of the school board. So I certainly want to say that I appreciate the role that she plays and the support that she has provided to my leadership. Certainly there are other members of the board that I would say the same about. There are people throughout the community who have expressed their support for my administration. And some of them are public officials, and I certainly appreciate the fact that they have stepped up and not been afraid to say, let's give this person a chance. She's only been here a year. She brings with her the qualifications that should prepare her for this work. We are seeing some improvement. And so let's give this person a chance, which I think is certainly appreciated. I also want to say that everywhere I go in this city, I'm amazed, first of all, at the number of people who recognize me. But many people come up to me and say, I am so glad you're here. You're doing a good job. I support you. And so there are some supporters who are very vocal and who publicly state their support. There are many others who are not as vocal, but who are supporting my work in other ways. So I greatly appreciate that.
Okay. Now, at the same time, you have the parent groups, and I understand that there's been some issues in that regards, and I know initially they were very supportive of your becoming superintendent, yet you hear in the news and we read about a lot of times they keep going back to the state commissioner and they're saying that either the transfer policy or your improvement policy and how those things have been rejected by the state. How would you address those issues?
Well, the first thing that I want to say is that since I have been here, I've emphasized the importance of partnership with all parents and community members, and I've put a lot of things into place to improve parent engagement and involvement in their children's education. We have a parent facilitator in every school. I hosted several community roundtables last year where I talked to parents about ways that they could be supportive and new initiatives to engage them. We've got a new parent portal where parents can go online and check their students' grades and attendance and disciplinary data and those kinds of things. So we continue to work on that. We have interpreters in the top 6 languages at every district-sponsored event. And certainly I have worked very hard to collaborate with all parent groups. The District Parent Coordinating Council certainly plays an important role as a parent group in the district, and this past year I met with them on a monthly basis. We had ongoing communication with them, and we have in fact, just as recently as yesterday, met with District Parent Coordinating Council and other parent leaders to talk about how we are going to move forward and continue to enhance the collaboration that we should be engaging in for the benefit of children. And I think that we are ready to do that. So I'm looking forward to that.
If I could bring Dr. Nevergold into this a little bit here. Dr. Nevergold, is there something that you would like to say before I start to ask you a couple questions, so that you would like the public to know?
Well, I think I'm going to say and echo what Dr. Brown said in terms of having the opportunity, giving her an opportunity to talk about herself, to give the community an idea of who this lady is and what her background has been, because when those charges were made regarding her capability and her managerial experience, there was no checks and balances on the person who was making those charges. None of the media questioned where he got that information, how he validated what he was saying about her background and her experience. And so, and being an individual, the individual that she is, she couldn't very readily dispute that either. But I think every opportunity that we have to let the community know that we have a superintendent who is not only qualified, but who is passionate and who has a vision for the future of this district, and who's working very hard to achieve that vision. That's critical. That's important. And so it's great to be with you this morning, to have the opportunity to have this conversation.
Well, I would ask you, and before we go to our break, and if those who are interested, and if they wanted to ask any questions, you can get on the line at 837-1112, 837-1112. What is your point of view when we look at the distinguished educator? Because I have attended some of the board meetings, and I see that there's discussion around that. And do you think that it was necessary to have a distinguished educator, and how are you working with Dr. Elliott now?
Right. Well, certainly the board was surprised to have Dr. Elliott appointed as the distinguished educator. We weren't informed prior to her appointment that that was going to happen, that the commissioner was going to do that. And also it occurred just after we had hired Dr. Brown and before she had an opportunity to start. So we were concerned that was not sending a message that that the district was moving in the right direction with a new superintendent, and we needed to give the superintendent the opportunity to set her own standards before we had this distinguished educator.
So do you think that the distinguished educator was appointed as a result of Dr. Brown's hiring, or was this already in the process? Weren't they already discussing bringing
Right.
in?
No, I believe it was already in progress. But at the same time, we were also in progress of searching for and hiring a new superintendent. So those things were occurring probably about the same time. But as I said, the board was not apprised of the process until the appointment occurred. Since the time that Dr. Elliott has been on board, she has been working collaboratively with the district, I think, and the board has, engaged more and more with her in terms of her work and in terms of what she is bringing to the district as far as her expertise and her role in addressing the underperforming schools that she's been assigned to. So we have no choice in working, or no choice in accepting the services of Dr. Elliott, and so therefore we're moving forward to make the best of the situation.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we're going to take a break. We'll be back after we hear from our sponsors. If you have a question, again, you can reach us at 837-1112, 837-1112. George Alexander, Reverend Payton, Mr. Willie Warner, and our distinguished guest, Dr. Nevergold, and Superintendent Dr. Pamela Brown. As I said before, those who you want to have a question, 837-1112, 837-1112. During the break, Dr. Nevergold, I asked you the question because, a lot, the name that we haven't mentioned but has been somewhat sort of a firecracker in the room has been Mr. Palladino. And I know that he has asked for your removal from the school board. And so my question to you, and dealing with him, and I had spoke to you about the construction issue and how it looks like he could have ideas to save the district money, but you had declined him the right, or told him that you would not appoint him to that committee. Why not, if you just make sure that you recuse him from anything that would be beneficial business-wise to him?
Well, the conversation with Mr. Palladino regarding his request to be appointed to the Joint Schools Construction Board went on for some time, both privately and then he requested that I publicly explain why I refused to appoint him to that position. If you recall, when Mr. Palladino first came on the board, he came on with his own agenda. Yes. He had about 40 or so motions and concerns, etc., that he brought to that first meeting, and he's continued that agenda, and we've addressed them. We've sent some to committees, etc. And one of the concerns, of course, and the requests he had as part of that agenda was to be appointed to that board. But also, one of the things that he indicated on that agenda was a motion that he was going to make to terminate the activities of the board, because I believe he expressed that he thought that it had been 10 years, the census of the schools had dropped, and therefore maybe there wasn't a need to have the construction going on. He wanted immediately to stop all the construction, and he was going because he said it was just benefiting architects and others who were putting money in their pockets. That to me was a statement of a conflict of interest. And so based upon that motion, I did not see and think it appropriate to appoint Mr. Palladino to a board that he was going to motion stop all construction immediately when we had schools who are under construction in the last phase of the project, and there were children in swing schools waiting to go back into their schools this year. And if you note that we have been having a number of grand openings this year of schools that have gone back because they've completed their construction. There are a couple more yet. And so that was really the reason why he certainly has the expertise, but I just thought that given what he wanted to do.
Fair. Dr. Brown, I know that our host, George, asked you a question about your 5-year plan, and before we go to callers, I have you give you a chance to talk about that, and then right after that, we'll go to our callers.
Great. Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about something that I have been really, really excited about. We've spent the last several months working with about 100 stakeholders from throughout the community: parents, teachers, principals, unions, business leaders, foundation leaders, really a broad-based representation to put together a blueprint for the next 5 years to move toward improving all of our schools. And it's essential to have that kind of plan because we have to make sure that we all have a common understanding of what our challenges are, what our goals and objectives are, and how we're going to move together to make sure that we achieve those. And so the plan has basically 5 different goal areas: student achievement, operations, finance, talent management, which most of us understand as human resources, and parent and community engagement. And those really are the 5 cornerstones of our plan to move this district forward. There are very clear objectives in the plan that focus on, for example, improving graduation rates, but not only improving graduation rates, improving the rate of success of children all along the way, from pre-K to 12th grade, and making sure that they're graduating ready for college and careers. We focus on using all of our resources to support the work that is being done in our schools every day, because that's where we know we're going to make the biggest difference for children. The plan focuses on doing more to break down some of those barriers to communicating with the families in our communities that speak some 70 different languages and that come from different countries. So there are some very specific plans included in this document that we will be implementing to make sure that we reach those goals and objectives. And it's all focused on providing that world-class education for every child.
Okay, thank you very much. We're
And
going to go.
also,
Oh,
could
go ahead, Dr.
I just wanted to add that this is the first strategic plan that the district has had in, I don't know how many years, but not since I've been on the board, and actually a number of other members of the board. So 5, 8 years perhaps. It's the first strategic plan, and that's critical to mention as well.
Okay. One more question. And looking at, and this is an issue that has been in the media, the savings. Can you address that? I know that you're supposed to be saving $2.0 million, and they said that because of certain salary folks that were kept on, that it actually cost the district 1.6. How would you address that, Dr. Brown?
Thank you for the question. First of all, I want to say that the reorganization plan that has been completed in the district, I understand, is the first of its kind, at least in a very long time in the district, but it was necessary so that we could provide more support to our schools in order for them to improve. The primary objective of that reorganization plan was exactly that, to be able to provide more support to schools where the work is done. And certainly, as we're anticipating a budget deficit for the coming year, as we looked at our general fund budget, we were looking at a budget deficit that was significant. So we take every opportunity that we can to save money and to make sure that we're using all of our resources efficiently. So as I worked with the consulting firm Cross and Joftas that was helping us with this reorganization effort, all along the way, as the plan went through different revisions and so on over a period of several months, they were identifying for us what the potential cost savings would be. And when we finally completed the structure of the plan, it was indicated that we could save over $1 million from our general fund budget. And I think it's critical that I emphasize that, because much of what has been written about the cost doesn't just focus on the general fund, it focuses on grant funds. And the fact that, yes, we have continued to seek additional grant funding for our schools. We have 45 schools that are struggling. We're not going to stop looking for opportunities to provide resources to those schools simply to be able to say we're saving money. So yes, we did save over $1 million from our general fund. Yes, that we did continue to seek additional grant funding, and as a result, we were able to give 168 additional positions to our schools. And I want to make sure that that's clear. Our schools benefited from many more additional positions. At the same time, we reorganized central office. We're much better positioned now to support our schools than we were previously.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll go to our callers. Callers, please be brief. Thank you. Are you on the air?
Yes. Can you hear me, Brother Roscoe?
Yes, I can, Miss Doyle, I think.
It might not be too clear because I'm in Oklahoma.
Oh,
I wanted to say hello to Dr. Brown.
hello.
To Dr. Neville. Hello, how are you?
Good morning, Ms.
Dr.
Doyle.
Brown, I can't talk too long. I'm on a 13-day tour across the United States. And
Wonderful.
I am going to be bringing back some Black history.
Oh,
I am tracing Black history across the country. And I just wanted to say hello. And I'm on my way to Missouri from Oklahoma. And so just keep up the good work, Dr. Brown. Keep up the good work.
All right. Thank you.
thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you again.
All right. Next caller. Are you on the air?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
I wanted to say hello to the superintendent. I've heard great things about her.
Good morning.
The one question that I wanted to ask was, doesn't it make you feel like you were in the Marine Corps when you come to Buffalo? You have to adapt and overcome.
Well, I certainly knew when I accepted the position of superintendent here that it would require strong leadership. And so I agree that I have certainly had to demonstrate that over the last year or so. But I love the work, and we're seeing progress, so we're moving forward.
All righty. Caller, are you there?
Thank you.
Speak up a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Go right ahead.
Yeah. This is not a reflection of Dr. Brown, because I think she's doing a good job of being heard.
You have to speak up.
I'm sorry, this is the best I can do. It's my understanding that if the school is failing, that the parent does not have to send the child there. And if she doesn't send the child, he or she or they doesn't send the child there, what's the alternative?
I think what you're referring to is the public school choice plan.
Go right ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. And so the regulation around the public school choice says that if a student is attending, in our case, any of our priority or focus schools, of which we have 45, and that child desires to attend a school in good standing, that they could submit an application, and that the district has a responsibility to do everything possible to provide a seat in a school in good standing for that child.
All right. We'll go on to our next caller. Caller, are you there?
Good morning. Dr. Brown, Dr. Nevergo, this is Samuel Rogan calling.
Good morning.
First, I'd like to say to Dr. Nevergo, I thank you and the other black women on the board for voting to keep Dr. Brown here in the city of Buffalo. That took a lot of courage, but I really appreciate it. Dr.
Thank you,
Brown,
Mr. Herbert.
welcome to Buffalo.
Thank you.
Quickly, can you just share with us your core beliefs when it comes to this world-class education for for every child. I have your this information in front of me, and I've been reading it ever since I attended that meeting. I'm just a little confused on when you speak of the theory of change, and could you explain your priority areas? And I hang up, and again, Dr. Brown, stand your ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly, I'd be glad to share my core beliefs. My core beliefs, first of all, say that every child can and must have a world-class education that prepares him or her for college and careers. Secondly, I believe that great leaders and teachers make the difference in our schools. They make our schools great. Thirdly, I believe that our core work is in the classroom. So I say victory is won in the classroom, in the work that teachers do each and every day. Fourthly, I believe that we have to have a whatever it takes attitude, that we refuse to let a single child fail. And then my fifth core belief is that parents and community members are our partners, and that we enrich the education of children and we improve their chances of being successful when we have parents involved.
All right. Caller, are you there?
Yes, blessed. I have a couple of quick questions. One, in terms of listening to the community, I was wondering how much the superintendent listens to the community. And the other is in terms of homeschooling as a viable option. Say yes seems to say no to homeschooling, and it seems that homeschooling, like any other, by any means necessary, should be available as an option. And I'm still concerned about the students who haven't been able to transfer. My understanding is that all students are supposed to be able to be transferred, not just what you're capable of doing, but lack of capacity is not supposed to be an excuse. God bless.
Okay, you talk about homeschooling, listening to the community, and the ability that all students should be able to transfer.
All right, those are all very good questions. In terms of listening to the community, I'm out in the community all the time. I attend many community events, and on many occasions I'm speaking on a particular topic. I hosted 7 community roundtables this past school year, so I would have an opportunity to meet with parents in different parts of the city and hear what their concerns and questions are, and to offer information to them that would be useful. And so I certainly listen to the community and will continue to do so. As far as homeschooling is concerned, certainly that is an option that parents have. Whether it's supported by the Say Yes initiative is something that was determined through agreement with the school board, and that happens to be a part of that agreement at this point in time. There are students who still have not been transferred, but we're still transferring students. We're placing students daily in seats. We're continuing to create seats in schools in good standing this year, and certainly we will do so in preparation for the coming year as well.
You know, Dr. Brown, earlier Mr. Warren had asked you about your qualifications, and I know that in looking at the structure of the school board, had you ever dealt with an organization where the administrative level was as unionized as it is here in the city of Buffalo, and has the BTF and other unions that you had to deal with, have they been willing to try to work with you in the give and take of trying to support you in your strategic plan?
Absolutely, I've had experience working in districts that had very strong unions. I started my career in Los Angeles Unified School District, which definitely has strong unions. I worked in San Francisco Unified School District, and just prior to coming here, I worked in the School District of Philadelphia. So those are all districts where there are very strong unions. I do believe that even though there have been things on which we have not agreed, I do have a pretty good working relationship with the union leadership here in the city of Buffalo, and certainly will continue to work to make sure that that's the case. But we know that we've got some contracts that need to be renegotiated, and we're working on that as well.
You know, and when you mention that, I'm just thinking about, we often talk about on our program, the engineers and the fact that, you know, is it possible that schools can be more centers of community involvement where people can use the space. I mean, they're buildings, and why it seems to be so difficult for the community to use that space after hours.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that, I think, lets me highlight a great example of some things that we've been doing to create those partnerships with community-based organizations and others to provide opportunities for after-school programs. We are collaborating with, I think it's 11 different community-based organizations that we wrote letters of support for so that they could get those 21st century grants, and they will be providing after-school programs in many of our schools for this coming school year. So we're going to continue to expand that. We're looking for opportunities to provide more out-of-school time programs for children and to partner more.
Because I'm not just thinking children, I'm thinking adults. I mean, our community needs a lot of help, and I know there are different types of programs out there. Sometimes they just need a space. But we have another caller. Let's go to our caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Good morning. My name is Kuhn. I'm calling to ask, what is the cost of BOCES coming into the city of Buffalo, since they were intended to be a rural service program to offer vocational training, because it would be cheaper for those places outside of cities to use their services. So how much is BOCES going to end up costing us, and whether or not is it still true that even if we don't use their vocational training component, do we still have to pay those administrative costs? Are they applied to us? So that's my question. Thank you.
All right.
All right. And I'm going to assume that you're referring to this new partnership that we have with BOCES for the children in Lafayette and East high schools. So we do have about 80 students who are participating in the vocational or career and technical education programs offered by BOCES. That costs us just under $8,000 per student, on top of the basic cost that we pay for those students' education, because they still have to receive their academic program from Buffalo Public Schools. We also provide transportation for the students to and from the programs, so we're still calculating what those final costs will be, but the program has gotten off to a very smooth start given the short period of time that we had to plan for it, and we are going to monitor and make sure it runs smoothly and then look at the outcomes.
Dr. Nevergo, my question to you. In the vote that took place in the support for Dr. Brown, it came down along gender and racial lines. Do you think that was an issue?
I am not going to characterize it as an issue. Certainly, looking at it on its face, it does bring up the question as to whether or not it was an issue. Since that vote, I have met with 2 of the 4 individuals who cast their votes against Dr. Brown. And, we've talked about finding common ground and moving on. And so while they had the vote based upon their opinion, based upon their belief, they're ready to move on and to work with Dr. Brown at this point. I also have meetings scheduled with the other 2 individuals, because I believe it's really important that we find some common ground. We've spent a lot of time being distracted from the work of the district and distracting Dr. Brown and other staff from the work that they're doing to improve student achievement. Given the results that she's achieved in this last year with the graduation rates and attendance and the suspension rates, it's imperative that we focus our attention and we focus our energies on supporting that work rather than trying to bring her down. And so, as we go forward, I'm working very hard to bring some unity to the board and some, concerted effort to work toward achieving common goals and common ground.
Well, if I could just say, George, I thank you for your comments, Dr. Nevergo, because to me it seems that the superintendent can't be the superintendent if she's in this constant battle.
That's true. I mean, and the board itself can't function. And, you know, we talk about, and I've heard other board members talk about the morale in the district. Well, I think the board has to take some responsibility for contributing to morale issues as well. If we're not functioning well, we're the leaders of the district. If we are not working together and providing a basis where the staff feels supported, the morale issues are going to continue to plummet.
Dr. Brown, you know, there's been some concern, there's been some public issues with regard to the turnaround plan that had to be signed off by the parents, and in fact, there's been some allegations that maybe the parents didn't sign off on it, and allegations of forgery. Could you address that issue?
Well, and I'm aware that there has been an allegation of one instance of a forgery, and when that was brought to my attention, I immediately asked our Human Resources Department and our Office of General Counsel to investigate that, to determine whether that was correct. We take that kind of allegation very, very seriously. As I mentioned earlier, we are continuing to work toward better collaboration with all of the parent groups in the district and the District Parent Coordinating Council in particular. I think that we disagree in some respects on the extent to which parents have had an opportunity to participate in planning. And so we'll continue to work toward better collaboration and better communication so that we're all of similar understanding as to how these things are working.
Dr. Brown, Dr. Nevergo, I want to certainly thank you for giving up your time and coming out and spending some time with us and our listening audience this morning. Dr. Brown, and as I was sitting back there, as Brown was talking to you, you know, and you were saying that you attended a number of community events, you know, perhaps maybe once a quarter we can come back and have talk to Dr. Brown or ask Dr. Brown a question, you know, so that, you know, the public can get a better awareness in terms of who you are and what your platform is and how we're progressing in this educational process.
I would love to do
certainly
that.
would extend an invitation to Willie.
Thank you.
We'll charge you with setting that up. Ask the superintendent, you know, maybe once a quarter, however her schedule permits.
Sure, that's
All right,
yes.
we are just about out of time, and so I can't give you the last word, Willie.
I don't have the
Brown,
I don't have the last word.
Dr. Brown,
I'm
Dr.
all set for the
Nevergo,
last
thank
word,
you all
George.
very much for coming here this morning and spending some time with us. I want to thank you, listening audience, for tuning in and listening to what we have to say today. Roscoe, very good job. Thank you for sitting in
Well,
and conducting the interview.
let me say one thing, George.
Uh-huh.
Say good morning.
Pamela Brown, stand your ground.
It's not a problem. And we have to say good morning.
Thank you.
With lives in crisis, families being torn apart, and compassion at an all-time low, it's time to get back to basics. Back to basics.
And now, back to the Community Hour with George B. Alexander and Willie Warren.